If you were an automotive enthusiast and had about a lakh and a half to spend, what you could get is a brand new suspension setup, a really high-end audio system, or you can get a really cool set of wheels and tires. But what if you didn't want to spend that money on your car? What if you wanted to spend that money instead on something a little more hobby-oriented? Well, we've got two options for you today. If you were to get into a serious hobby toy for about 1.5 lakh rupees, you could have one of these two cars you see here. A high-end nitro-powered RC car or a race-ready 4-stroke Go Kart. So which one should you choose? Time to take a closer look. First up, the Go Kart. Made by a company called K&K Karts, the Go Kart you see here packs in a 200cc single-cylinder GX200 engine made by Honda. Unlike the 2-stroke racing cars that we see around the world, this one is a 4-stroke and is mated to a CVT gearbox and is of course rear-wheel drive. The car can hit a theoretical top speed of about 80 km per hour with a long enough road to do it on. It is in essence the most basic, bare-bones race car you can get your hands on. And now the RC car. While it is smaller than the kart, let me assure you that it is also much more complex. Now, while you can buy an RC car straight off the shelf, the one you see here is one of the best in the country and has been hand assembled using some of the best parts you can get anywhere in the world. For example, under the plastic body shell is Kyosho's MP9 Inferno chassis that includes all the suspension bits, the differential, the transmission and the all-wheel drive setup. The engine comes from OS Speed and is called the Spec 2 and it weighs just 3.5 kilograms. Just like with a real race car where you can adjust every single little thing in the suspension and electronics, this one too has adjustments for damping, ride height and even the wheel camber. Now, I really do need to talk about these two in their individual capacities because even though these two are very similarly priced, the kind of spec they put out from their own power units are poles apart. Now let's start with the Go Kart. That there at the back is a 200cc 4-stroke engine made by Honda. It makes about 5.5 horsepower. The kart weighs about 100 something kilos, give or take a few, without the driver of course. That on the other hand weighs 3.3 kilograms. It's got a 3.5cc engine, so that's minuscule, and that puts out 4.5 horsepower. That's 1 horsepower less than this 200cc engine from a 3.5cc engine. That thing is bonkers. 0 to 100 on that, less than 3 seconds, a top speed of well over 120 kilometers an hour. We have to try this out. And first up, I hopped into the Go Kart. Now when we shot this video, we had a strange unseasonal bout of rain and the kart was even more fun on a wet track with the rear end stepping out at the slightest provocation. That said, when the track did dry up, the challenge against the clock to put down a faster time could be quite the driving force. Getting those braking points just right, ensuring you don't put the car into a slide and getting as close as possible to the barriers on the apex is a thrill that is quite difficult to replicate. But while getting into a go-kart and going as fast as possible comes naturally, the RC car took a little bit more getting used to. Once it does get going though and the engine is adjusted for idle, the nitro-powered RC car is quite the sight and it makes quite the racket too. The trigger-based controls on the controller are quite simple: pull to accelerate, push to brake, and turn the wheel left or right depending on what direction you want to move the car in. Now while it did take some time to get used to that sensitivity, to get it right, and the car screams in the direction it is pointed at, squatting at the rear with all-wheel drive setup putting down power even on a damp track. Getting it around the corner, especially around a tight track like this, can be slightly difficult, and it did end up toppling over a few times with literally no damage at all. In fact, these little cars are extremely tough little things. All in all, a ton of fun. But I still wanted to know which one was faster. And since we did have the track to ourselves for a few hours, we called out the pros. Driving the Go Kart, Cyrus Dhabhar, who currently drives in the Volkswagen Ameo Cup, and driving the RC car, Ajmal Khan, one of the best RC racers in the country. In a straight line, there is really no contest. The RC car leaves the kart behind in a plume of nitro-powered smoke, but in the corners, stability of the kart with its wider footprint really shows a different picture. The back and forth on the turns where the RC car has to slow down to get it right was like seeing a classic dogfight. Straight line speed versus handling prowess. But in the end, even though the RC car did manage to overtake the kart right before the start-finish line, I'd say it's a pretty even match.
So what's the final verdict then? The crazy RC car or the mad amounts of fun you can have in the Go Kart? Well, honestly, they're so different, you really can't choose one between the two. If I had the money, I would have them both. That said, in the RC car, once you do master it, it's just so much fun because it does some crazy things. And of course, it's insanely fast. That said, as a petrol head, a go-kart is grassroots level motorsport. It's you, it's enveloping you, you are driving it yourself. It can be a whole bunch of fun. Some people might prefer the RC car, some people might prefer the go-kart. Honestly, it doesn't make a difference. Both are a ton of fun.